What up, y'all? AP World, Saturday night. It's like Saturday Night Live out here. I'm going to try to be as funny as Saturday Night Live is. So for those of you guys wondering, so I'm going to be grading a bunch of SAQs live. I already put a bunch in a document. You can click the link at the button below. And those you can see, you can follow along with on the document of like how I'll be grading it. These are the SAQs that were on the test last year. It's possible that you've already even practiced these ones. But if you already submitted an SAQ response and it's not on that document, I'm still going to go through and give comments on any of them that are in there. So you can still submit it. Let me just put a code up. So it's all on Schoology, and you can still submit answers and basically anything that's submitted probably until, I don't know, I'll probably do this tomorrow. So as long as it's submitted by the time I do it, then I'll give you some feedback. But basically, if you go to Schoology, well, if you've used Schoology, you can sign in or make an account, and http:// the comments will be on Schoology. I think it might send you an email. I'm not sure. I didn't use Schoology while I was teaching in a classroom, so I'm kind of new to it. But it's nice so that you can add your responses there. It times you, which is nice. And one second, let me just a little bit bright in here. All right, so I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Check out the poll. We're going to do a trivia game tomorrow. And so we want to make sure that you are, we do a topic that you want us to cover. So we're going to do a mini trivia game to just test out the apps, test out Game of Fives. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to change my camera because this one is being weird. All right, should be back. Cool. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to talk about SAQ tonight. Tell me in the chat, how are you feeling about SAQs? Give me a 1 through 5 scale, so like that AP scale. A 5 meaning like I got this. I'm not even worried about the SAQs. A 1 would be like, oh, I'm really nervous. Awesome. All right, you guys are in a good spot. Need help with evidence. Yeah, so we're mostly going to be looking at samples tonight. I'm going to give you some tips, tricks, go through it, but I'm not going to go through some slides, so it'll be a little different. Let's check out this. Most of you guys want period 3 and 4 in a trivia game tomorrow. We'll probably do the trivia game a little bit before like Game of Thrones, so kind of late afternoon. Kieran, thanks for posting that in the chat, but please don't spam it too much. So we've seen that you have it there, and I appreciate it. And if you tweet it, we'll retweet it for you, but I don't want that coming up in the chat all the time. Okay, so for the SAQ, so here's the thing. I'm going to share my screen. Is the stream working for anyone else? Try refreshing if it's not working for you. I'm not sure why it's not coming up. All right, let me share my screen. The most difficult section. So you think it's the most difficult section because they can give you something you aren't prepared to answer, and 2 of them are mandatory. All right, so in some ways, I would agree with you, but in other ways, I actually think that like the short answer questions are where you can earn the most points, almost like the easiest. Y'all, I don't know about you, but I'm ready for all AP tests to be over. I feel like I'm just like tripping over my words. I'm like busting out cram sheets like crazy. I don't know about you, but my brain is fried. So we're really looking forward to, Friday when we can all just like chill for a minute. It'll be nice. Okay, so let's just look at this really quick. So the short answer question, you will answer 3. The first 2 are mandatory. Of the last one that you'll write, you get to choose one. And you get 40 minutes to do it. So you have about 13 and a half minutes per question-ish. Yeah. So just to kind of, cut through this. This is what I think is the most important. The SAQs are 20% of your exam score. And I know you might be thinking like 20% sounds like a lot, But I'm serious. Like, I think you can pick up these points. I think it's the most overlooked part of the test because people get worried about multiple choice because there's a lot of them. You get worried about the essays because there's a lot of words you have to write. But the short answer questions, you can actually like pick up a lot of points without doing all that much. Like, what you're going to see in this is that they're a lot easier than you think, right? So if you look at the other parts, right? So multiple choice is a ton of your exam score, right? That's 40%. And if you didn't check out last night, we went over multiple choice questions, me and Mr. Lassiter. You can check out that replay as well, or at least like kind of cut through a little bit of it. DBQs are 25% and the LEQ is only 15%. So the short answer questions are worth more than the LEQ, almost as much as the DBQ. It's a place where you can pick up points, you know? Like realistically, you need half of all points available to score 3. So there are, I don't know exactly how many points, let's say someone wants to do some math. So this is like a really rough estimate. It works out a little bit different than this because there's weighting, obviously. But to really simplify it, there's 55 points on the multiple choice. There's 9 points on the short answer. And there's 7 points on the DBQ and 6 points on the LEQ. So like 77-ish like points out there. But again, it's not so simple as like points. But let's say then you get half of them. You need like 25-ish points to get a 3. So I just want to like show you that like this is not, you can totally do this. So all right, so all of the questions, some of the questions are going to have a stimulus just like multiple choice. Other questions might not. And so there'll be sort of 2 different versions of it. And just a quick breakdown here. So if you notice, you can almost totally skip periods 1 and 2 in terms of short answer because you have a choice. So you have question 1 and question 2 will both be on the second half of the course. So nothing on periods 1 and 2. And then you get a choice between 3 and 4. You can either choose question 1 will be on periods 1 through 3. Question 4 will be 4 to 6. So you've got choice here. So let me just bring up the scoring guidelines here. We're just going to kind of jump in. So what's the code? So I put the code in let's see if I still have. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if you want to still answer it. So I know that you guys think that like the people who answered it last year are lucky. The people that, last year's test was so easy, but this year's test, what if it's hard? And honestly, I feel like you're actually in a better spot than you think. This is just my opinion. Obviously everything could backfire. We don't know what will happen. But I feel like based on seeing the AP Euro questions that happened last week, hearing students responding about the A-Push test, I think that these tests, they're really kind of trying to make them a lot easier to actually do well on them because they can't have, these things be super hard. And so, yes, there's going to be a curve. Yes, there's going to be questions that totally throw you off and some that seem easy. But I feel like these tests are getting more and more straightforward, to be honest. So I wouldn't be surprised if you open that test on Thursday and you're like, oh, this isn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. And the fact that you're here with me on a Saturday night means that you guys are probably in a pretty good spot. You're putting in the time. It'll pay off for you, I promise. All right, so let's look at question 1. So so here's how I would approach the SAQ. The first thing I would do, same thing as multiple choice. This was the biggest tip I gave last night. The first thing I'm always going to do is read the source. I want to know who wrote it, where it was, what year it was, and like whatever information they're going to tell me, I want to know that first before I do anything else, right? That helps me contextualize, right? I want to be able to see, before I even read a document, I need to know like where we at, who's writing this, what year are we in, and then actually what I'm going to do. So now I've read this. So Rudolf Rummel, don't know who he is. Okay, he's a United States political scientist. All right, so that's useful, right? So we just know that he's a political scientist, but like kind of just a random academic. And he's writing this in 1994. Okay, so quick context that I'm going to run through in my head. This is after the Cold War. It's at the end of the 20th century. You know, if he's writing about death of government, he's probably going to write about different types of government. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do in my head. And then what I'm going to do is I want to look at the questions before I even read the source. So just to kind of, run through this, all of the short answer questions are going to be organized in the same way. You have ABC. Each one is worth 1 point. Each one is asking you to do one thing. You just got to do that thing and you can earn the point. If you don't do the thing, you don't earn a point. All right, so you can't lose any points. So don't put any blanks in short answer. Always try, because if you get it wrong, you just don't get a point. There's no penalty. So I have a couple of different verbs here: identify and explain. Just to clarify that, identify. Actually, why don't you guys put this in the chat so that we have this written? What does it mean when it says identify? What is that asking you to do? When a verb says just identify or define, kind of the same. Name, state the actual event. To list something, right? So you actually don't need to explain, something that says identify. You just have to state it. You just have to answer it. To cite, and you can give an example if usually identifying is giving an example, right? So it's sort of like defining would just be like say it, and then identify would be like give an example. So the only reason why like our teacher said you have to explain it, right? So it's always safer to also explain, because sometimes what you think is identifying is defining, and then you're explaining it by giving an example. But ultimately, like, the only thing you have to do to get the point here is to actually name an example of what they're asking. So they're asking to identify one historical example of mass violence that was committed by a totalitarian state in the 20th century that would support Rummel's argument. Okay, so I need to know what Rummel's argument is. So that's what I'm like keeping in my head. This one, explain. What does it mean when it says explain? Why don't you put it in the chat? What does it mean when it says explain? If question A asks to identify and question B asks to explain, so you'd have to do it again, right? So you have to be very specific in how you're answering it. So explain, elaborate, analyze, right? So expand on it. You're going to have to like prove it, right? So this is saying explain one historical example of a democratic state committing mass violence that would challenge Rummel's argument. Okay, I'm still thinking, I got to know what his argument is. And then this one, explain again, one development in the late 20th century that likely shaped Rummel's view. Okay, so I still need to know what his view is. So this is how I would attack it. Place the document first, then look through the questions and see, like, what do I need to get out of this document? Because you can go, sometimes, if they give you a passage that's like, like something that's really difficult to read, like, it won't be too difficult, but if it's a passage from the Quran, if it's, a Chinese philosophy passage or like something from Aristotle that sort of feels like it's kind of going over and over itself, you get lost in the text. And so then you're going to get stuck. So now I have purpose. I need to know what Rummel's view was. What was he arguing? All right. So some of you guys are already answering this in the chat. That's awesome. Help each other out in the chat. I'm going to run through this and then let's look at some examples together. So the more power a government has, the more it can act arbitrarily according to the whims and desires of the elite, and the more it will make war on others and murder its foreign and domestic subjects. Yikes. The more constrained the power of governments, the more power is diffused, checked, and balanced, the less it will aggress on others and commit mass violence. As the extremes of power, totalitarian governments slaughter their people by the tens of millions. In contrast, many democracies can barely bring themselves to execute even serial murderers. Okay, so basically he's saying if a government has a lot of power in it, sort of in that spectrum of like totalitarian, it's gonna murder its own citizens. All right, it's not gonna have a problem doing that, or even others. It's gonna commit war, mass violence. All the way on the other side with democracy, checks and balances, people voting, they're less likely to commit mass violence. All right, makes sense. So, I think this is a really straightforward question. Like, this is the kind of question that you'd be like, sweet, I got this. So in this case, identify one historical example. Let's pop over here. One thing I do want to just type out really quick is one method to use, which is ACE, which in a lot of ways actually, oops, do you guys have, hopefully you don't have editing access. I don't think you have editing access. Okay, whatever. Only view. Okay, yeah, so I just don't want to like hop in here and have a lot. Okay, so ACE really quick. This is what most of you probably use. It's actually doing more than you have to do, but this is how to be safe, right? Answer the question, literally give the answer, one way, ... C would be cite an example. So like, for example, which, as you know, with an identify question is technically more than you need to do, but may as well. This question in here, the Ottomans had the Code of Hammurabi. No. The Mesopotamia was the Code of Hammurabi, like way back. Then the last one is to explain, therefore, blank. So really, really straightforward. You do not need more than 3 sentences per section. And even beyond that, I would say you could even, some of them you could do in 2 sentences. You can combine C and E in some cases just to make it easy. Okay, so identify one example of mass violence. So just something in the 20th century that is mass violence. The second one I need to know, okay, so the first one I need to know a totalitarian state committing mass violence. The second one I need to know a democratic state committing mass violence. And the third one I need to know some development in the late 20th century that would have led him to say what he said. What happened in the late 20th century that would have allowed for that? Excuse me. Okay, so let me just put this on the same page. So in this first sample, so these don't have, any names on it. If this is yours, I'm going through them and I'm going to grade them. But, obviously no hard feelings if you, whatever. I'm not going to rip you apart, I promise. Okay, so one example of mass violence committed by a totalitarian state that would support Rummel's argument would be the Holocaust. Perfect, right? So this is let me actually highlight these. This will make it super easy for you to go back and do this. So let's say A is going to be green, C is going to be blue, and E is going to be yellow. Okay. All right. So one example of this would be you're answering the question. Here's your A. The Holocaust was first initiated by the Wannsee Conference and was referred to as the final solution. That's awesome that you know all that. This was the mass killings of Jews using new technologies and concentration camps. Yeah, this is a beautiful answer. This would totally earn the point. And this student definitely knows a lot more than you would even need to in order to get this point. So this is great. So then one example of mass violence committed by a democratic state would be the firebombing of Dresden. Perfect, right? Mass violence committed by the US onto Germany. I don't know if I'm going to highlight all of these. This was done in World War II by the UK and the USA in order to destroy areas essential to Germany's power. Beautiful. This resulted in mass civilian casualties. Right. So you see how like this student is doing more than they probably need to, but it's like worth it because it's not all that much more, you know? It's not like you're writing like paragraphs. Like you could probably get the point by even saying a little bit less, but it's like worth it to say this much. It's not so bad, you know? Okay, so maybe since you guys are doing this anyways, maybe let's just like kind of brainstorm really quick. Now we're totally gonna get through all this. Or maybe let's not. Let's just keep going. All right, so one development that would shape Rummel's view would be the Cold War. The Cold War was often the cause of negative feelings towards communism in non-capitalist countries. Rummel most likely associated totalitarianism with communism because of the feeling exerted by the government towards communism. These are awesome. These are great. This is definitely a perfect, these are like, I'm just going to highlight this last one, but then I'm not going to highlight them anymore because I do want to have time to get through this. All right. So all three of these answers are clearly using the ACE method. You know, this student knows the history and is explaining it and is answering the question, which is perfect. So well done. And I have a feeling most of these are actually going to be pretty good. Germany is a country that in World War II committed mass genocide of a group of people. Millions of Jews, Christians, and others were slaughtered and thrown into piles. Hitler led this totalitarian state of Germany, making his followers believe that the Jews were the root of Germany's problems at the time. Again, you answered the question. Good. You said the Holocaust, which would be fine. The United States, which was a democratic state in World War II, bombed Hiroshima in Japan, completely decimating the city with an atomic bomb, killing thousands of Japanese. By doing so, the U.S. committed an act of mass violence that would directly challenge Rummel's argument. This is awesome. I really love this sentence here that clearly answers the question, right? Like they point out a correct answer for sure, which would be the bombings in Hiroshima, and then they bring it right back, which is perfect. They sort of added together A and C in here, and then this would be like E. The development of new technology in the late 20th century, such as the computer, did this because people using this new technology would have seen the mass destruction being created by Germany and Russia. You know, I'm not sure if that would have earned it a computer. Possibly. Let's see. I think you have to actually say an event. Although it's possible that this would have earned it. I mean, it's not necessarily listed here, but it doesn't have to be listed here to earn it. But these all say like a really specific thing. So the question says, explain one development. I mean, a computer would definitely be a development, but I don't know that this necessarily ties it back to him, right? So as a political scientist, he would have been aware of some of the events going on. So I would say, like, just to be kind of a hard ass at this point, I would say maybe no. But the rest of them, yes. And like, might that actually count on the test? Maybe. People knew about stuff before computers, right? No, I mean, computers existed before 1994, but nah. Okay. All right, let's look at sample number 3. One historical example of genocide that was committed would be the Holocaust. Good. Okay, so that was going to be the same one. One historical example of a democratic state committing genocide would be the Rwandan genocide. Okay, this is interesting because I don't know that Rwanda was a democracy by the time they were taken over. And so they sort of had a coup of their president, and so this wouldn't necessarily work because this isn't historically correct. But you could have said Rwanda for the last part, right? One development in the late 20th century would be communism versus democracy. Communist states are totalitarian and would have committed mass killings, such as Mao's 5-year plan. Perfect. The U.S. is very anti-communist, so it makes sense that a U.S. political scientist would believe that mass killings can only be committed by a totalitarian state. This is beautiful. I just want to like bold this. This is awesome. Okay, so I would say this one would earn a 2 out of 3. Not quite for B, but for sure for C and definitely for A. Was China a democracy? No. At this point, China was communist. So China becomes communist in 1949. So this would have been a perfect example of late, 20th century. And then last one historical example of mass violence that was committed is the Holocaust. Perfect. One example of democratic state committing mass violence could be violence against slaves before the abolition of civil rights. So this one, is there a year that it says? Oh, okay. So part B doesn't specify a year. So that's perfect. You can say, I would say like, so if whoever wrote this one, I would write a little bit more here, like, for example, I don't know. For example, the like violence committed against, I don't know, the people of Tulsa, people of color in Tulsa in the 1920s, just to give like a really specific example. So I would just, not say things that are like really kind of vague, that you're just saying this, yeah, it happened, but it makes the person think that you might not know an example of it. And so I would just give a specific example. The aftermath of the Cold War, in which the U.S. saw themselves as victors and assumed that the rest of the world would take their capitalist views and abide by democracy. I think that can work. I think you would, again, need an extra sentence to just like explain it, right? So just like this person did. This is like a perfect example of like even like if you're sourcing a document in a DBQ, this is perfect, right? Because you're saying like, why would a political scientist have said what they said? Okay, so just to again be like harder on this one, I would say this would be like a 1 out of 3. You earn it for A, not necessarily for B and C. You just need a little bit more to like explain it. Always try to stick to 3 sentences. Exactly. All right. So I think that's a pretty straightforward question. Like you basically could have said anything for A. You could have said anything that like other totalitarian mass violence that you could have pointed out would have been the kulaks under Stalin, the Great Terror under Stalin, or the gulags, the Chinese government, and the Great Leap Forward, Cultural Revolution. You could have said, where is this? I want to say Cambodia. You could have said Cambodia in that one. Oh yeah, here, Cambodia is here. Right, the Khmer Rouge. You could have said, for B, you could have talked about basically like imperialism and crushing of African resistance. You could have talked about violence against indigenous populations in Australia by the British, or even the US, like the Trail of Tears would have totally worked. The firebombing of Dresden, perfect, right? The atomic bomb, basically any act of violence committed by the US government or, Great Britain, there's plenty. And then for C, you could have talked about the Cold War, the development of the United Nations. You could have talked about Yugoslavian ethnic cleansing, Rwandan ethnic cleansing. Perfect. All right, let's move forward. Let's take a look at question 2. So as some of you have pointed out, this is like the document is really just kind of context, right? I mean, in this case, you had to know what his argument was, but you just kind of needed to know the answer to the question. So if we look at this one, same thing. I want to know what this is showing me first. So we see a historical encounter in 1765, in which Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II granted the British East India Company, represented by Robert Clive, the right to collect tax revenue from the Mughal provinces. Okay, so 1765, Great Britain, British East India Company. I don't know. The American Revolution hadn't started quite yet. I'm just like thinking through things. The British weren't quite in charge of India yet. All right, so this is painted by a British, so it's painted by a British artist. That's interesting. All right, so let's take a look at this one. Oh man, you guys having some trouble with centuries. So just think of the century. 19th century would be the 1800s. It's just like one number before. So the 6th century would be the 500s. So would this one be about imperialism? Yeah. Identify one way in which the event depicted in the image reflects political changes in the global balance of power. And then I want to see economic changes. And then one way in which Great Britain's relationship with South Asia changed in the 19th century compared with the relationship depicted in this image. Okay, so what is depicted in this image? Hit me in the chat. What is the relationship in this image? So like what's happening? We have, these guys are definitely the Brits, right? And they are obviously in some sort of negotiation with the Mughals, who are over here, right? An agreement to the right to collect tax revenue from the Mughal provinces. So the British are going to collect taxes from the Mughals. Okay, so economic imperialism, exactly. So one way in which the image is showing economic changes, the first one is political. So let's check this out. The image reflects political changes in the global balance of power from the individual power of some Asian and African empires to a massive European imperial presence there. This is good. This would earn the point. So although the British aren't quite taking over India yet, they are gaining a lot more power. So it's not just, beforehand, a lot of the global balance of power was in the East and it's starting to shift. So what's the economic change? The use of joint stock companies, right? To indirectly control smaller states. The British East India Company is receiving tax revenue. Perfect. The relationship between Great Britain and South Asia changed in the 19th century and in the 18th century, depicted by the image. The image shows only the beginnings of British control in India, while in the 19th century, the British take complete political and economic control over India. This is perfect. This is a good answer. So you clearly have answered the first one. We have a political change, an economic change, and then we're showing a change that will happen after this. Boom. So good job, Miranda. If that was yours, good job. Would spheres of influence work? For spheres of influence, you have to be a little more specific. I mean, it depends on how you say it. Just saying spheres of influence wouldn't necessarily be enough. In the 18th century, European countries were colonizing, and this shifted the power to them as they displayed their military might and gained control over more territories. India would eventually become colonized under the British rule. Boom, got the point. In Asia, the Europeans would exploit them for goods to prosper economically. India was forced to grow cotton for the British, while India declined economically as the British was heavily taxing them. Perfect, right? So you have, this first sentence wouldn't be enough, but the second sentence, you're giving an example. So you're explaining your answer to that. In the 19th century, Great Britain's relationship with South Asia was more militarized as they took over them using great force. In the image, it is a peaceful negotiation. I would argue that like you should give an example here of that, right? So maybe say, is this specifically saying the 19th century? Okay, so in the 19th century, so you couldn't say like the Amritsar massacre, but you could say, for example, the British, the role the British played in like stopping the Sepoy Mutiny. Whoops, something like that, right? Right, so that just to have a little bit of different things. Let's see. Number 3. So this one would get, so again, like if I'm just being tough here, I'd hold this point and give a point to 1 and 2. So this would get a 2 out of 3. Y'all are killing it. For real, you're killing it. You're killing it in the chat. You're killing it on these. I think you're gonna be all right. South Asia is basically just India, kind of. South Asia also includes Nepal and Bangladesh and Pakistan. Okay, one way this image reflects political changes in the global balance of power is the alliance of the Mughals and the British, which soon led to the imperialization of India. The arrival of the Dutch and British trading companies to Asian countries to profit off trading were established by the Mughal emperor. Perfect. How many sentences would you recommend? I would recommend 2 to 3 for all of them. 3 to be safe. Definitely at least 2. One way this event reflects economic changes is the correlation of foreign countries relying on other countries in a way of producing profit. The use of taxation from foreign countries to develop wealth. You don't even need this. This right here, you don't even necessarily need. You see what I mean? It's like you say the same thing. One way this event reflects economic changes in Asia is the use of taxation from foreign countries. You see how you can just do that? You can just say less. The relationship with South Asia intensified, and the British East India Company looked for more ways to expand its trading practice and maximize profits. For example, the British East India Company ruled India for more than 100 years. Good. I mean, you're just basically saying, can you say increase of Western Europe in trade for Asia? Not necessarily. That wouldn't be exact there. If you're looking for the prompt, click the button below my video so you can see the prompt and the sample essays that we're all in. All right, so the immense amount of labor availability and cotton productions became important for Europe to rely on India. Yeah, this is fine. I would say this is a 3 out of 3. Another thing that you could have said here is just like that, like Britain will increase their reliance on cotton from India in order to offset the fact that they weren't they weren't getting as much cotton from the southern part of the United States because of the Civil War. Okay. And number 4, Anthony, click the button below my video. The prompt is in there. It says like practice, SAQ practice. The prompts are there. Okay. Yeah, I'll read all the ones that are there. The image reflects the divine right of kings as a political change. The king has been set onto a throne and is being worshipped by the community. The king is being shown the same respect as a king with the divine right of kings. I don't know about this because the divine right of kings is much more Europe, and the king sitting on the throne here is a Mughal king. So let's see. So according to them, Europe gaining power, Mughals losing power, East India Company, tax revenue. So I would say no on this one. Okay. So this just isn't historically correct. The event depicted shows the Mughal Empire receiving the income from the tax revenue of the British East India Company. The Mughal Empire's economic system gained from receiving the right to collect tax revenue from the Mughal provinces. So I would say, yeah, I think this is fine. I mean, if we look at their examples that would earn credit, you know, growing European power of European merchants, able to use their joint stock. So as long as you say like British East India Company, the Mughal grant shows how competition between European. Yeah, okay. So this one would be fine. In the 19th century, Great Britain heavily controlled India. Great Britain crushed the Indian Rebellion. This gave Great Britain an advantage. All right, good. So these first two would score. The second two. So this would be like 2 out of 3. How are we doing, y'all? Lots of questions in there. Is this helpful? Do you want me to grade the last 2 questions too, or do you want me to just kind of stop and answer your questions? I'm happy to do either because I know there are some questions piling up. So I can grade the last 2. Grade. So this is useful. Awesome. It's making me feel better about how they grade them. Yeah, so like the short answer questions, unlike the essays, these get graded by readers from home. This is all done like online. And it's literally like they give you sort of scoring guidelines like these, but more in depth. So they might give you a list of possible answers for each question, and then you sort of go through them online, just like I am. So like short answer grading is just not that, it can't be that strict because it's not subjective. I mean, it's subjective, but it's not based on a rubric. It's just literally like, did you do this or did you not? And so that's usually pretty easy to see. You either have the words in there or you don't. Whereas a thesis or contextualization, you know, in the essays, it's like, it's here, but does it count? That's where it can get tricky. Okay, so more likely than not, your teacher has been grading you very harshly all year. I did the exact same thing for my students, and it helps you because it forced you to now write at this level. Even if you only needed this to get to the points, you're definitely going to get there, you know? And so if your teacher grades easier than the readers do, then you're kind of screwed on exam day. But for all the teachers that have been grading super hard all year, that's the way to go. You know, like, so more likely than not, your essays, your short answer, anything that your teacher graded was difficult, was a high bar, you know, maybe not giving you the point, even though they may have even known that would have earned the point. So that's sort of like, yeah, that's sort of how it goes. And so maybe if you felt like your teacher was too lenient, you know, I don't know, could be tough. All right. So in 3 and 4, you got to choose one. Most of you guys actually chose number 4. So remember, this is like, you know, on the first half of the course, the second one's on the second half of the course. And in this question, it's asking, explain one difference in the way in which nomadic and sedentary societies in Afro-Eurasia before 1450 adapted to their environment. Okay, so I just literally need any way that anyone adapted to their environment before 1450. Oh, sorry, no, a difference. One difference in the way nomadic and sedentary. So I just need a difference between them. B, I need to explain a similarity between them, between economic practices in 600 to 1450. And then C, I need to explain one major pattern of cultural interaction between nomadic and sedentary societies. So hit me with what do you know about, like, who are some of the nomadic societies before 1450? The Mongols. That would be the most obvious one, right? The Mongols. What else could you have said? Bantu. Just generally hunters and foragers before 1450. You can even go all the way back to like, hunter-gatherers, nomadic pastoralists. Yeah, Bedouins. And then what are some sedentary societies before 1450? So essentially any empire that just was in one spot. Rome, Byzantines, Mesopotamia, Greece. Perfect. Yeah, I'll just grade a few just so that I can answer questions too. Okay, so one difference between the way nomadic societies in Afro-Eurasia adapted to their environments is that nomadic societies moved when they were not pleased with their environment, while sedentary societies attempted to control the environment by building irrigation systems. Nomadic societies would move themselves, but sedentary societies would not move, just build roads. Beautiful. Nomadic societies stayed. Opposite. Nomadic societies moved, sedentary societies stayed. So you have, if you look on here, it's literally like, that's literally the first one. Sedentary societies mostly engaged in farming, nomadic societies engaged in pastoralism. All right, let's see what else you said. A similarity between the economic practices is that both societies usually had a form of currency that stayed constant in their society. Whether it was gold, silver, or any other type of currency, trade was possible. Perfect. Both societies traded. Yes, you could have just said they both traded. And this just gets more specific of like they used currency to do that. One major pattern of cultural interaction is the act of conquering. An example of this is that so for this, you need to talk about cultural interaction though. So, remember things that are cultural would be, exchange of technology, religions, language, science. So you have to make sure to be talking about something cultural. So even though this explains why those cultures were exchanged, it doesn't answer the question. So this would be 2 out of 3. Someone asked before, how does it earn the point versus not earn the point? So it just literally has to answer the question. So you have to just be correct here. So you just have to, as long as you explain one pattern of cultural interaction and it's before the time period they give you, then you get the point. That's why I think these are easier. What's the difference between the Huns and the White Huns? I don't even remember off the top of my head. I think the Huns are sort of like Germanic tribe, and the White Huns I think are in China. I don't know. Some of you probably remember better than I do right now. Central Asia. I think they attacked China. All right, one more. Before 1450, sedentary societies settled down and modified the environment, while nomads would not modify it but use the environment, such as grazing around for their horses. So this doesn't really answer the question. A here, farming. Doesn't quite answer the question. So you're missing one thing. Like you do, even if you had just said sedentary societies move while nomadic societies stay, like nomads do modify the environment. Like using the environment inherently modifies it, right? And so if your horses are grazing around, you are affecting the environment. But how they would adapt to the environment was a lot different because they didn't need to build like walls, right? Or anything like that. So that's how that would be different. So I would say this would not earn the point. Both nomads and sedentary societies engaged in trade economically. Sedentary societies such as China and Rome would rely on nomads to engage and trade with other countries over long distances, such as the Bedouins. Perfect. Culturally, many times nomads would be the cause of diffusion. For instance, Buddhism was able to travel up the Silk Roads through nomadic traders. This is perfect. Okay, so definitely do those two. So I would say 2 out of 3, not quite for A. You guys don't worry about the difference between the Huns. That's so specific. If you're freaking out right now because you can't remember the difference between the Huns, it don't matter. Okay, let's scroll down to question 4. So this is identifying a similarity between agricultural developments in the period 1450 to 1900, so period 4 and 5, and the Green Revolution of the 20th century. And then a difference between agricultural developments and the Green Revolution, and then one political or social response to the Green Revolution. Can you grade question 3, sample 4? I'll go back to it. I just want enough time to do all this. Question 3, sample 4. Before 1450, sedentary societies adapted to their environments by creating irrigation systems. For example, Rome and aqueducts. In contrast, nomadic societies adapted to their environment by staying near water sources. I wouldn't say that this earns the point because this last piece, you're not really answering the question, just similar to like before. You have to like be more specific. Like this is like staying near water sources is not adapting to their environment as close. Like be more specific and say it in the first sentence. Say it as like a comparison statement. While sedentary societies blank, nomadic societies blank. That will make sure that you get the point. Both sedentary and nomadic societies participated in long distance trade. Yeah, perfect. That one's good. And one major pattern of cultural interaction would be the use of missionaries or crusades to spread beliefs. Good. Okay, so this would be 2 out of 3. All right, so Green Revolution is basically like the third agricultural revolution. There's like 3. There's the first one where we develop agriculture. There's the second one that's the Industrial Revolution, where we are now able to produce a lot more food faster. And then the third one is the how is crusades? Because it would have spread to like Bedouins. It's just an example of like how things spread. You have the third one, which is the Green Revolution, which is the use of like GMOs and chemical to like increase the yield of crops. So a similarity between them, the Green Revolution would be that they both led to less biodiversity because only the same few crops that were grown. This would lead to famines across the world, such as that of the Irish potato famine. Perfect. One difference is that the Green Revolution had led to more pollution than agricultural developments in before. For example, the introduction of fertilizers, yes, led to pollution of water. Agricultural developments before did not as much, such as the seed drill. Yeah, perfect. Yes, Green Revolution starts in India. One social response to the Green Revolution would be the increase of wealth and status of farmers. This isn't really a social response. As they were able to adopt these new practices and methods into their farms, like fertilizers, they were able to increase their yields and fasten their production of crops. Okay, so let me just look here. I think you need to be one political or social response. You need to think of more like effect. So social response, protests, right? Political response would be like weakening of socialist movements. Okay, so this is not really, this just isn't, increase of wealth and status of farmers would be an economic effect. It's not really a response. So in this case, I would give this one 2 out of 3. I don't think they're spamming. They're putting an answer here. I mean, if somebody wants to grade it, I'm just kind of doing the ones that are here. Number 2, Both the agricultural developments in 1450 to 1900 and the Green Revolution caused an increase in population. The agricultural developments, what was the question again? I need one, similarity, a difference, and yeah. Okay. The increase in food supply caused an increase in population. Good. The agricultural developments were more the mechanical items used in farming, while the Green Revolution was the chemical side of farming. The agricultural developments include a tiller. So I would be more specific here of the Industrial Revolution. You know, we're more mechanical in terms of blank, while the Green Revolution was using more chemicals. But it does answer the question. One social response was the increase in population. So this really isn't, so you guys are not quite answering that social response thing, because this is an effect. That's not a response. A response is something that people do, right? So this would be a 2 out of, let me look just to see this last one. One social reaction to the Green Revolution is a social uprising to protect the environment. This is perfect, right? Protest because of the use of harmful chemicals. And number 4 here, one social response is that it led to a surplus of food. So this one wouldn't work either. So just remember that the word response refers to how people actually react, something that they did. Not necessarily just an effect of it. If it was an effect, they would say effect. Y'all are in a great spot, like straight up. I'm going to answer some questions now. So I'm going to stick around I know we're running out of time, but I'll stick around for a little bit longer and answer your questions because I do want to make sure that you're feeling good about this. Okay, for the SAQs that have a stimulus, does the student have to explicitly include a reference to the stimulus to earn the point? Not necessarily. Only if it specifically asks for that. If it says something like identify something about like the tone of it, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have to. You could, right? You can be clear. You can use that to like put it in there, but don't worry about like quoting it ever. Don't do that. All right. So I would refer to the stimulus just so that they know that you understood what's there, but just put it sort of in that second sentence. So answer the question, give something in the stimulus that sort of relates to it, and then it's cool. Yeah, that's actually helpful. All right. So answer the question, give an example if you can explain something in the stimulus, and then just relate it back to the question. Don't worry, I won't answer ones here that are there multiple times. But go into the questions tab and upvote so that I know what you really want me to focus on. And if you know that you added a question that I already answered, it is helpful to delete them. So this is Taoism, the same as Taoism. Yes. Same thing. It's just not an English word. So it's like Hanukkah, right? So it's spelled differently in different ways, like Genghis Khan. So if we submitted one on Schoology, where will the comments be? I think it goes on Schoology. So I think you'd have to like log back in to check. So I would just look at, just check it out tomorrow. I'll try to do them tomorrow morning. Oh, did you just delete that one? Okay. Okay, so same with this. So I already answered that one. Do people generally have enough time to answer all the questions and write all the essays, or is the exam a huge time crunch? I think it depends on you. I think it is a time crunch. Like I've sat down and done it before. I used to take the full mock test with my students. So I've sat down and done a full AP World essay like exam like 3 or 4 times before. And I was rushing. I was rushing through different parts. You just have to really budget your time. So make sure that you take time at the beginning to plan what you want to say for every open response. In the short answer question, like look at the question and just jot down like 1 or 2 words real quick about what you actually want to say. Same thing with the LEQ, with the DBQ. Give yourself a tiny little, like really shorthand outline. Taking that 5-10 minutes in the big essays, and the short answers take like a solid 2-3 minutes to figure out what you want to say will save you time later. Okay, so it is going to feel like a time crunch. You're going to feel rushed. You're going to feel like your hand is like going to fall off after. But it's totally doable. You just got to like keep chugging, keep going. All right. Yeah, the Green Revolution. So the Green Revolution is like the third agricultural revolution. So basically you have this movement that really starts in like countries that are, considered like third world countries, like India, where you have used the use of like chemicals to increase the yield of crops. And so it leads to a lot more food being produced, which increases the population. So it was like good because of those things, bad because of the use of pesticides and the decrease of biodiversity. There has been an entire DBQ in the Green Revolution before. I wouldn't say it'll happen now again, but something to just keep in mind, I think, would be the DBQ is going to be on a really like seemingly random topic. And so, last year everyone freaked out because it's trains. The year before that, everyone freaked out over it was like wealth and religion. It may just feel like you studied everything and you get a DBQ on something totally random, but you have the answers. You have the documents, and so you can figure out any of it. Same with the short answer. For 2 of them, you'll have a stimulus. You can figure it out. I'd say just like really use your context clues. Think about what you know about that time period. Try to remember everything you possibly can about that year, that place, and just kind of go for it. The best advice I can really give is don't try to answer a question by kind of doing a little bit of both things. Like if you're not sure what the answer is and you have 2 ideas, don't try to answer it with both, because you're probably going to be wrong. You're probably just not going to get the points. And so instead, pick one. You may not know if you're going to be right. You just sort of have to pick it and you got to go for it. And as long as you can go all the way through, you're going to be better off. So I should have just clicked answer. What would you do if you don't know the historical facts to answer? So same thing, right? So like just what I just said. Do your best. Think about what is anything you can remember in that time period. So for like the one that we did today, if you get something that's like agriculture 1450 to 1900, okay, I'm just thinking about what can I even remember in that time period? Well, you have, the Mughals, you have British Empire, the Spanish Empire. Okay, we have imperialism. I'm just trying to like jot my memory and then try to figure out, could any of those relate to agriculture? Yeah, right. Of course, Industrial Revolution. And so then that will kind of help you. That will kind of help you get there. So that's my best advice, is just context, all about context, and use that to try to guess. Should I use SAQ formulas? Yeah, I would use ACE. I think RACE is just like restate and then answer. It's the same thing. RACE is like doing more. But I think you can say ACE is fine. T, what does T stand for? T stands for, what is it, like thesis, evidence, analysis? Or like something like that. Which totally works. It's just, or you can use like CER is another one that's been used, where it's like claim, evidence, reasoning. I think that one's used more in science, but you can totally use that here, right? Make a claim, give evidence, give reasoning. Yeah, I know you're like freaking out about bio too, but it's all the same thing. You're doing the same thing in every class, just about a different topic, right? So it's just the same, just restate it and answer it, give some evidence, and then prove it. Do you recommend reading the passage for the SAQ before reading the questions? No, I don't. I recommend reading the sourcing. Look at who wrote it, when they wrote it, where they are, whatever else information they're going to give you, and then read the questions and then read the source. Because you want to read the source with purpose. Look for something. It makes it a lot easier, a lot faster. You can probably just read it once or maybe twice if you're looking for something. If you're just reading it to understand it, you might find yourself reading it 4 or 5 times, and that's a waste of time. The difference between identify and explain. Identify is just more like, give me the answer, state the answer. Explain is like, tell me why that's the answer. Give me the answer and tell me why that's the answer. All right, so you would have to know, it's a little bit different. Although it's just kind of annoying though in these, because honestly, I don't think the verb matters as much. It seems like you kind of have to explain all of them. So just, even if it says identify, just explain it. It's worth it. Explain goes further than identify. This question about like, should I take a push or not? Take it. Why not? You've now done, for how many of you was this your first AP class? So here's the secret of it all. This will always be your hardest AP because it is your first one. Now that you've done one, everything will get easier. You've been through the process. You've been through the year. You've been through the studying, the actual test taking, the waiting for your scores, the getting of your scores, all of it. So if you're thinking about whether or not to take a push, take it. You may as well. You already know what it's going to feel like to go through it. You already know how to do the essays, how to do the multiple choice, it's the same type of exam, same exact rubrics. The only difference is that it's 400 years of history rather than 10,000, which makes it so that you have to know more detail, but you only have to know one thing. Objectively, human geo, I think, is like one of the easiest AP exams, just from my opinion. It's similar to psych because you just sort of like know the things and then just take the test. But take it. Always keep taking it. Take this class. It's better for you. Now that you've done world, a push will seem a lot easier. Yes, I will grade it. I will grade these. Isn't psych hard? It's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. So human geo and psych both are just sort of memorizing terms. Like you just have to know key terms for those. No vocabulary. Same thing with psych. It's just about knowing terms. If you can memorize, 500 terms, then human geo is not hard and psych is not hard. And honestly, U.S. government is kind of similar to those as well, where it's straightforward. It's not, you don't have to have these like difficult rubrics. It's just like, here's the content, put it on the test. And environmental science, I think it's the same way. Potentially. Yeah, HUG is AP vocab. Yeah, so if you're going to self-study for a test, human geo, self-study. Psych, self-study. Not so hard. All right, so okay, this question I know this is about the DBQ, but it's okay. So what would you recommend when it comes to reading the documents and managing to your time? So same thing, you got to give yourself purpose. So look at the DBQ. Tomorrow night, I'm going to talk about the DBQ. We pushed the session earlier a bit, so I'm not at the same time as Game of Thrones because I'm busy then. just like y'all might be too. And so you'll need to be able to manage your time during the DBQ. And you'll want to look at the prompt, then figure out, then as you're reading the documents, you're just trying to figure out, how does this document answer this question? And just figure that out and then move on. All right. We'll be making AP French a Fiveable course for show, y'all. All right, so let me just give you guys a little sense of what's going on. Since you guys are here on a Saturday night, I'm gonna leak some future Fiveable stuff to you. So, leaks. Well, first of all, definitely make sure that you come to Game of Fives on Monday night. This is going to be like off the hook, super fun. And we'll do one tomorrow. We'll do a small one tomorrow to check it out. We're trying to like practice it, making sure it's going to work, no problem. So I'll do some period 3 trivia tomorrow. This summer, we are going to be launching Camp Fiveable finally, which some of you guys may know that I was toying with last year. But Camp Fiveable is going to be a total thing this summer, where we're going to do some fun stuff. So like, think about all the things that you actually like want to learn, right? Like you're in school, you have to go through this textbook super fast. Like think about the things that like, man, if only we could have slowed down and known more about X. Like I want to know about personal finance. I want to know about current events. I want to actually go through and understand what constitutional crisis is happening right now. Maybe I'm like, I want to read a bunch of different books over the summer that have nothing to do with school, and I just want to read them and talk about them. Or I want to go through, I don't know, like movies. Like let's talk about, like some of the, like, I have a really good lesson on like Get Out, of like how all of it, right? So like, so we haven't even talked to the interns about this. So y'all are in this. I did talk about it in a thing. So I'm curious, just hearing about it in the chat, what kinds of things would you want to learn about? Of like just totally random stuff. You're like, yeah, it's summertime. I'd totally like tune into a session on blank. Endgame medicine. That's cool. Astrophysics would be so dope. I don't even know what virology is. Immunology, quantum calculus, study of viruses. That's dope. Conspiracies. Oh man, we could totally do a conspiracy thing. Government, space related. Yeah, like think about all those things that like some of the stuff that we'll do could really just help you for next year. Like we'll do some like stuff to help with like summer assignments and to get you set up for your classes next year. But also just like a bunch of fun stuff too. They'll just have nothing to do with tests, because learning is just like learning. So we're going to have a lot of new teachers on Fiveable this summer. So there'll be live streams happening all the time. And then next year too. So we'll be able to get new, all of the, we'll be able to get all the AP subjects. So we'll be able to have more streams happening all the time. Camp Fiveable is just going to be the same thing as it is now. So it's $5 a month for access to Fiveable. And so we are then, for $5, you can just watch all of it. And summer interns, we're going to be looking for new interns. We're not replacing the guys that we already have, but we're going to be launching new summer internships. And we have a lot of openings that we're creating, all kinds of stuff, content production and TAs. You know how on the chat on Fiveable, how when you talk and ask a question there, it's interns that are answering you. We're going to put more interns on there to be TAs. This is dope, y'all. Hope you're getting super stoked for this. How do you apply to work as an intern? Stay tuned. We're going to launch applications for interns. Either probably like in the next 2 weeks, within the next 2 weeks. Chill, Dylan. We're not replacing you. But we need to hire more interns. So we're going to bring on a lot more interns. We're going to, no. So if you're already an intern, you won't need to apply again. You're already an intern. We're not kicking you out. We're just reorganizing the internship, and we're going to launch the application again to bring on more interns for the summer. Coming for Dylan's spot. Nice. And then the application process will change a little bit. What's the age limit? I think you just need to be at least 15 so that you can have a job. Current freshman. Yeah, so basically it's going to be like you've taken a class before, you've taken this class before. And then in terms of like AP, like SATs, ACTs, we're going to do all those things too. So even like for the, there'll be support happening next year for the other exams that you need for, we're going to try to do all kinds of stuff like, college admissions stuff. What else? We were thinking about even adding like sex ed onto Fiveable. Getting like a really dope expert and like, why not? If your school's not teaching it, like someone probably should be, right? Driver's ed would be super dope. That's a good idea. I mean, we won't like actually be in the car with you, but we could go over it, right? And so no matter what, so basically the idea is that like plenty of people can teach things, and we're going to put them live and put them in front of you. And Fiveable will just be $5 a month for students. And it's a lot of stuff that you'll be able to check out. This is legit the best thing ever. It is the best thing ever. And let me just ask really quick. I'm not saying that we're going to be able to do this, but if we could get someone of some kind of like celebrity status over the summer to teach about one of these random subjects, who are some people that you'd be like really excited to see? And like, keep in mind that we're not going to get, we're not going to be able to get like Beyonce. I mean, I'm going to try, but Elon Musk, Ben Freeman, we can definitely get. John Green, we're going to try, but you understand how this is going to be difficult, but we're going to try. Neil deGrasse Tyson would be super sick and also going to try.
Everybody at your celebrity and tell them to teach Fiveable.
Yeah, if you want to just like hop on Twitter and at the person that you really want to do it, and like ask them to like teach for Fiveable, that would be great. So we're going to, Ellen, oh man, the thinking is like, get one of these people to teach about something totally random that you wouldn't expect them to know. Like get like some like NFL player to teach about finance, or get like AOC to teach about like chemical compounds. I don't know. Is it paid or volunteer position? We're working through that, but the internships are generally volunteer. LeBron James to teach coding. Exactly. Now I like where your head is going. Cool. Yeah, we're probably not going to ask Donald Trump to teach. Bill Nye, though. Bill Nye is a good idea. Cool. Can we do coding classes on Fiveable? Hell yeah, we can do coding classes. We'll just need someone to teach coding. So we're gonna keep connecting you guys to just like people who know things, and we'll always have AP classes because this is sort of the heart of what we do. But learning is not only about APs. Yes, please keep spreading the word about Fiveable. For all of you guys, the ways that you can help us right now are to help get more of your classmates to join Fiveable this week. It's literally $5 to join for the week, and you get access for the month. And so, intro to the medical field, that's super cool too. Yeah, so tell people to join. The more people that join, the more Fiveable will be able to keep creating things. We're going to redo a lot of our technology this summer. Our apps will be updated. So many cool things. So please tell your friends to join. It supports us. It lets other people know that we are building something that is working. People want it. And tweet us any of your ideas. All right. So hit us up with ideas for things that you want to learn. Look how far Fiveable has come just this year. Yeah, man, it's been a wild year. Last year was just me teaching AP World and AP US, and now look at where we are. Teach Human Geo while playing Minecraft. I mean, yeah. Yeah, you can get volunteer hours for being an intern. We're also going to do a lot more like stuff showing you about the like Fiveable team and what it's like to build Fiveable, what it's like to be building an edtech startup. I think there's some interesting pieces there about just like what the behind the scenes looks like, so that I think there's a lot of jobs related to startups that you would never actually know of unless you know them.
I got 5.
Yeah. Does Fiveable only make money on subscriptions right now? Yeah. So we don't have ads right now, just subscriptions. And looking for some investors. So if any of you guys have some rich parents or, you know, one good uncle, that would be great. Just send them our way. No, but for real. Oh, we're trying to build stuff, you know. I'm calling my dad right now. Exactly. Perfect. That one good uncle. All right, y'all. I'm gonna peace out. Have a good Saturday night. Get some rest. The rest of the Fiveable team is here. So Claire and Ton. Claire's the one that's posting the memes. She's out here. Hit me up on Twitter with ideas, and dope. See y'all later. Bye.